Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Paul Downs, Jay Goltz, and Laura Zander don't hold back. Laura and Jay both say their sales are coming in well below expectations. Not surprisingly, Jay has a 5-point checklist that he's using to assess and address his shortfall. Laura's situation involves a marketing team that she says has been feeling stressed and is coming apart, with lots of crying and arguing. They're just collapsing, she tells us. Paul, meanwhile, says his sales aren't bad, but he's got one employee who's been holding them back. The employee, who's been with Paul for 10 years, has been spiraling of late, says Paul, who's dreading what he calls the toughest conversation, a conversation he fears will leave the employee devastated. In such situations, Jay says, he's found it helpful to rank himself from 1 to 10 on the hardass scale. If Mr. Rogers is a 1, and Jack Welch, the Take No Prisoners former CEO of GE, is a 10, where do you want to be? If you pick 4 or 5, Jay says, you're probably going to go out of business. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations, brought to you by our principal sponsor, The Great Game of Business, will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine named the best newsletter for business owners and which you can subscribe to for free at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Paul Downs, who is CEO of Paul Downs Cabinet Makers, which is based outside of Philadelphia and makes custom conference tables. Jay Goltz, CEO of the Goltz Group, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital yarn store based in Reno, Nevada, and Madelinetosh, a yarn supplier based in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, The Toughest Conversation. Welcome, Paul, Jay, and Laura. It's great to have you here. Let me start with you, Laura. Welcome back. I gather you've been on vacation in Alaska?
Yeah, we went to Alaska last week and went to like a little remote island just with us and a couple other people and did a little bit of fishing, really got away, no cell service. It was amazing, super amazing. But coming back from vacation, not so amazing. It's brutal, just super brutal.
How so?
I mean, you leave for 6 days, and that's just 6 days worth of work that piles up that you still have to figure out how to get through. So it's not like the work goes away. You're just postponing it. So you come back and you got 600 emails in your inbox that you got to go through and billions of Slacks and all the messages that, well, I waited until you were here to talk to you about this urgent matter and blah, blah, blah. You go from being relaxed and not having any responsibility to showing up and just having everything in front of you. So it's just a culture shock. It's always a little tough. I don't know about how you guys feel.
Well, are you delegating enough? Because I got to tell you, I'm going away next week, but there's no way I'm coming home back to, I'll get a bunch of junk emails, but it's not like people are asking me a lot of stuff because I got other people doing this. So the question is, are you delegating enough to other people? Why is it all going to you?
Because we're in the middle of a transition. And we're basically starting 2 new businesses within our business. So that's why I'm working more now, probably the last 2 months or 3 months than I've worked in a long time. And so I worked nonstop for about 4 or 5 months, and then I was able to take 4 or 5 months and kind of work part-time. And now I'm back to, we're at another inflection point. And so I'm back to working nonstop for a little while. It won't be forever.
I'm wondering whether a vacation without internet is a vacation. Because I travel, but I can just see my emails and see like, okay, is there anything really critical? And that's actually more relaxing to feel like I can just keep tabs on things and know that I could act on it. I don't think I've ever tried a vacation without internet. No, I got to tell you, I totally agree. I know that I can just clean up the stuff and I can take me, half an hour and I'm done. And I just know that I'm not coming back to, it's not that I got to do a lot on them, but you still got the emails you got to go through. And I do find it very relaxing to just put a little time in, clear the deck, and then go and pretend like you're a normal person and do nothing.
Yeah. I'm actually about to take the first
weekend ever without internet, and I'm a little worried about it because I just like to know what's going on. I don't need to do anything. It just makes me feel much happier if I have a sense of what's happening in the company.
I don't know. The first 2 days of the vacation, I'm still like 100% in it, and I'm still checking emails and everything. And then it's like I totally check out for a few days. And that's just kind of how it's always been. I don't know. I mean, that's just my personality.
She's in a different situation in that you're traveling with your husband who also runs the business. So that's different than someone like me that leaves. It's just me gone. In your case, you're both gone. So that does add a different level of absenteeism.
Yeah. And, my personality, better or worse, is just I'm either all in or I'm all out. And when I'm all in, I'm all in. I don't do moderation very well. So it's hard for me, and it can be very stressful. I don't know. There's sometimes, when I go on a trip and I do check in every single day, and I do. I mean, I check in just a little bit to make sure there's nothing that's like a fire that's going on. But, the little stuff that's not super urgent, I don't want to deal with. So sometimes I like to just check out.
Laura, how did the business do while you were away?
Oh, it's fine. I mean, these businesses run themselves. I'm not in the day-to-day. It's the trying to, like I said, we just launched a new brand. So we basically are creating a new business, and we launched that while I was gone.
Have you told us about that? What is the new business?
We're doing our own private label yarn brand. So working now with the mills that we work with to get our product for Texas, we've decided to just work on margin. Sales at Jimmy Bean's in our Reno location, our sales of other people's products have continued to just slowly decline and decline and decline. So we decided to create another one of our own kinds of products. That's what we just launched a couple of weeks ago. And sales are down.
But why is that? Why have sales of other people's products gone down? Do you know?
It's a great question. A variety of reasons as far as we can tell. So one is that a lot of other people's products have gone out of business. 7 years ago, we probably did, $2 million a year worth of brands that now don't exist anymore.
All right, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they go out. People age out. They tend to stick around for about 7 years, 7 to 10 years, and then they just get tired of it. And part of that probably is like the nature of our industry is it's a craft-based industry. So a lot of people start their businesses and start their brands because they love the craft and they think, they want to be surrounded by the things that they love. And then after 5 to 10 years, it gets exhausting. That's when the honeymoon wears off.
Wait, add to that, it's exhausting and they're not making as much money as they thought they were going to be making. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yep. It's where the passion hits bad math.
Exactly.
Have you ever thought of putting together a business support group for your own vendors?
Mm-hmm.
And
totally. Absolutely.
Do you do that, or you just thought about it?
No, we've done it in various forms over the years. It's funny you ask. So the business that we bought in last October, we are distributing a yarn out of the Shetland Islands, in Scotland. And we're going to do a retreat next July. And we've decided that the retreat is just going to be for business owners. It's going to be for store owners. So we can all go to Scotland. There'll be about 15 of us and share best practices, share stories. I'll talk about the financial side of things, blah, blah, blah. So we've had book groups for store owners, all kinds of stuff.
That's a good idea.
Laura, tell us about the brand that you've started. What are you calling it? And is it a high-end brand?
So the brand is called Yarn Citizen. And it's a brand that's based on it's all being good citizens of the world, of the environment, of the yarn community, and remembering that we're all part of this passion together. The first wave of products that we have launched came from us being in Peru last year And the mill that we work with, it's a fair trade mill. They've got their supply chain is just impeccable. They pay a lot of attention to making sure that everything, every step of the way is sustainable and ethical. And they process all of the sheep tops, all the wool tops, all the alpaca, all these different fibers from around the world, but a lot of it comes from Peru and South America. They have all of these leftovers of these different fibers. So we had them upcycle all of these leftovers into a new product that obviously, because it's upcycled, we'll never be able to recreate it exactly the way it is. I mean, we created a big batch of a few thousand kilos of some particular yarns, and we dyed them in particular colors and, blah, 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 blah. So we just launched, an alpaca wool blend yarn, and then we launched just a full wool blend yarn. And these yarns they're sustainable in that, or they're environmentally conscious, and then it was stuff that would have been waste that we have then processed into something. And then we have really put a heavy focus on being price conscious. I just went to this event right before we went to Alaska and Colorado and kind of did a little focus group and was showing people the yarn. And I'm like, look at the fiber, look at the quality, what's the hand? In other words, how soft is it? And how much would you pay for it? And everybody's like, oh, probably about $25, for one of these hanks of yarn. It's 100 grams. And we're pricing it at $14. So we're trying to make sure that people know that sustainable doesn't need to mean that it's ridiculously priced.
Except you don't know that. It's a nice concept. But the fact of the matter is, maybe the $14 isn't going to pay the bills, and you don't know that yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I thought just the phrase conscious, what did you say, consciously pricing? I find that to be a funny term. It's either you do it consciously or you screw everybody. How about...
Well, I'm just saying that in casual conversation.
We're on a podcast, so this isn't really casual conversation.
Well, no, but we are being conscious.
What does that mean, conscious? No one's going to pay too much? But what if that doesn't pay the bills? I mean, that's how the world works. I mean, there's a lot of people that are trying to... It
does pay the bills because I'm pricing it.
But you haven't done it for long enough to know whether...
Wait, what do you mean?
I'm saying, have you done this long enough?
Yes, I do. I did a P&L.
You did a P&L forecasting forward.
Yeah. I mean, I've been making handbags forever.
Okay. So is the reason you can charge 14 is because you're using scrap. So the cost of materials is minimal.
Yeah. I mean, we're making great margin. In fact, we've priced this so that we can wholesale it so that shops can sell it as well. And so we've actually just put it in 5 different stores, and I've got tons of history through the handbag line that we've done. So I know what our manufacturing costs are. I know what duties are. I know what customs are. I know what shipping. We're sea shipping it. So, blah, blah, blah. So I know what the bottom line cost is per unit. I know what we can charge. I know if we're going to pay sales reps. I know if we're going to, if there's outbound shipping.
Okay. So my whole point is, rather than consciously pricing, you're value pricing it because you've got the cost down. So you've been able to give a good value for it. Okay. It's value pricing.
It is value pricing, but when you say value pricing, that makes me think of Walmart.
No, I know,
and this is
but when you say consciously pricing,
so
I'm thinking of that's just that those two words just don't go together. They just don't.
Well, maybe not for you, but
what about haze pricing, where you're just kind of aware of what's going on, but not really?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, I buy the concept. Sounds good. You're trying to be, good to the environment, to the employee. All that works.
Can I say sustainably priced?
Sure. Great. There, we've got a good compromise.
Okay.
Done.
Let's just say fair price.
No, you can't say fair because, again, that says there's either fair or unfair pricing.
Fair enough.
Wow. You've done it again, Paul.
Laura, you've talked a lot about emphasizing your margins. It sounds like you could have gone for a higher margin here. Did you debate that? And if so, why'd you decide against it?
Because this is a hole in the market. Because there's an opportunity there and there's nobody who's doing this. I mean, if we wanted a higher price, then we would just be right next to all these other different brands.
I got to tell you, I don't have a problem with the phrase opportunity pricing. I don't have a problem with that. You found an opportunity. You got the stuff cheaper. You figured out how to get your cost down. I think that's a lovely phrase, opportunity pricing.
Why don't you just call it pricing?
Yeah, Exactly.
I mean, really, everybody who's pricing is just figuring out some scheme to do it. It's all pricing. It doesn't need an adjective. You're just pricing. And you decided this is how you're going to think about it.
So, Laura, is that one of the, did you say there are two businesses that you're introducing?
Yes. And then I'm building another team to work on our subscriptions. Long story short, we hired somebody a couple of months ago who has a ton of experience, 30 years of experience in the industry. It was an opportunity. We reached out to her. She had been thinking about, we found somebody, right? We got her from her other job. We weren't looking for somebody specifically. We didn't have a job opening, but the opportunity presented itself.
So opportunity hiring.
Yes, opportunity hiring.
So we got opportunity pricing, and now we have opportunity hiring. Okay, great.
So we brought her in, and and we weren't really sure exactly what we were going to bring her in to do. I mean, we knew kind of at some level, but over the last 2 months, we knew that it would just kind of shake out. And she was okay with that, and we were okay with that. And, she has a skill set that nobody else has. And it has caused some issues. There's some resentments. There are people who are feeling threatened. There are people who are, our sales are really far down. We're down almost $500,000 in sales, and some of our team is just kind of collapsing under the weight of that pressure and that stress. And so we bring somebody in to help. Wait,
are we sure these two things are related? You've made it sound like it's because of this hire that all of this happened. Is that a clear-cut direct line? Or
no, it's actually the other way around. I mean, our sales were down, so we found somebody that we thought might be able to help us, and we brought her on to help us increase sales through different mechanisms. And she is remote, and everybody else is here in Reno for the most part. And there's some resistance to having somebody who's remote and who has this experience. So long story short, we're going to build a team around her, and we're going to launch a couple of products around her and basically create a small business within a business. So I just hired somebody else 2 days ago. I've got another interview tomorrow for somebody that I think we're going to hire. Basically, we're taking this team from a business that went out of business last year, and we're pulling, the best people from their team and hiring them, and we're going to recreate the winning parts of the business that went out of business within our business, if that makes any sense.
Do you know why they went out of business?
I do. Yeah, because we thought about buying them. Yeah, I know. Great question, Paul.
Okay, so for people that don't have a scorecard, let's just review. You said you hired someone. Okay, the reality is, 1, your sales were down. 2, you hired this person with great expectations. She was going to help fix this because of all her experience. 3, she's remote. It didn't gel well. There's some problems there. 4, you're going back to reintegrate this thing because you still believe that's going to be the way to fix all of this. Is that true? Did I just give the right order?
Great job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, I'm with you.
Laura, what sales exactly are you talking about? You have a number of different businesses that you've been describing. Are you talking about sales to yarn stores around the country?
Those sales are down, yes. And then those
are the sales that are down? No,
all of the sales are down. So almost all the sales are down. So yes, you are correct.
So that includes your e-commerce business that you sell yourself through your website.
Yes, but for this particular conversation, what I was talking about was the e-commerce sales.
But here's a major question that we're all dealing with, or many of us. Is it down compared to a year that was artificially high because of the pandemic and people being home? Is this just the hangover from the fact that we all got more business? Not all of us. Some of us got more business because people were home and spending more money. Or do you think this is actually down from where it should have been, not factoring in that, last year was just a fluky year because of the pandemic? Can you tell?
Yes. Excellent question. And actually, I'm going to look at something real quick while we're talking, but really excellent question. And I should rephrase it. It's not that necessarily that our sales are down. It's that we are not hitting the goals that we set at together as a team at the beginning of the year. We are missing the goals significantly.
Me too. I thought I was being fairly conservative,
Yes.
but I'm not hitting the numbers I want. And for when you're ready, I'm just going to share I have 5 things I'm looking at to fix this. And I think they apply to most businesses. So when you're ready, I will unveil that.
Yeah, no, go for it. I mean, I'm looking.
Let's hear it, Jay. We have one of these Jay bullet point lists. Awesome. Let's hear it.
You're the perfect people to be on this with me because we all have similar kind of businesses. We're selling to consumers and, we're selling products. We're not selling services. Okay, so.
Wait a minute. What about me?
I say you too. I say that we're all in the same.
You're not selling to consumers.
Well, no, but you're selling products. You're making products.
Okay.
We're all in the product business. Yep. That's the point. Okay. Number 1, and I'm doing this all myself, we should all be looking at our websites because everyone you talk to, most people, I'm working on it. Okay, well, maybe it's time to fix it. I went to my own website and realized we were still using a phrase from the pandemic in my new store that's downtown for framing. It said, we encourage you to make appointments, walk-ins welcome. And when I read that, it's telling me like, gee, we kind of can't handle the business. And I said, we should just say, feel free to make an appointment, walk-ins welcome. Just a little tweak like that. I don't know how many people went to our website and were thinking, they can't handle the business. Okay, so I'm looking at my website for sure. That's 1. 2, just take a break and look at your competition and think, they getting some business from me somehow? And in my case, I don't think so. So it just couldn't hurt any to just take a pause and look around at who else is out there. 3, if business is off and you still got the same overheads, which most of us do, I don't think you can ever look at this too much. Relook at your pricing models. Like, gee, are we charging enough? Like in my case, the real estate tax in Chicago have gone crazy. Even though I'm not in Florida or California, my insurance rates keep going up more than inflation. So my overheads have gone up and I need to factor those in. So pricing is 3. 4, not necessarily in this order. Do you have any people that just aren't getting the job done that you've talked to numerous times that you got to grow up and bite the bullet and say, yeah, I think we need to make a change. Yeah, I did that last year and I think I'm really clean now with that, but I'm paying a little price for last year, trying to fill in the voids there. But I took care of that one. And then the last one is, which I got the same thing like you. Are there any trends going on that I need to pay attention to? Like I've recognized that the good days of picture framing are over. The baby boomers pushed this whole business, and now the baby boomers are old and aren't framing as many pictures. And it's a more challenging environment in custom picture frame business. I can make up for it in some of the other businesses, but I've had to acknowledge I can no longer build in the natural growth that I used to build in because it's a mature market. It's not going away. I still feel great about the framing industry, but it's not the market it was in 2000. And I put that into my projections. So I believe by doing these 5 things, I will get to where I need to get. And I think that this applies to most businesses.
Well, you left out 1.
Go ahead. That's why we're doing this.
Did you experience any particularly good or bad luck? Because things happen at random that actually, COVID's a pretty good example of that. Like nobody planned for that. It just happened. And then the government pumping billions of dollars, right?
That's a whole other conspiracy theory,
that
Paul.
I might put under trend. Yeah. No, for sure that the pandemic did. Last year's numbers, nobody can look at them and go, well, this is normality. It wasn't normality. And we need to factor that into, okay, where are we getting back to some kind of normal flow of business? And so when you do your budgets.
Well, is our forecasting skills.
Yeah. I'm not that far off, but I'm off, I'm off 6% here and, 9% there now. Do I think I might be able to make it up in the last 4 months of the year? Yeah, but this is where I always say optimism is the gift of the entrepreneur and also the exposure. Maybe I'm being optimistic and I shouldn't be. I don't know. I'm still grappling with that.
I'm not even optimistic. I'm like, this is going to happen. Like, I know how to fix this and this is what we're doing. And I happen to be, I don't know, when things are down, like right now, it drives me to reinvest. So we've hired a number of people over the last 6 months that have great experience. So it's just taking a little bit of time, for the momentum to kick in and for some of these new ideas. And we're in an inflection point. What we've been doing for the last, so we got the artificial bump from COVID. That was great. We worked really hard for it, but we got those numbers and it's not just business as usual. So during those couple of years where business was quote unquote easy, or sales, I guess, were relatively easy, that masked a lot of things that, like you said, the website, I mean, technology changes, customers' behavior changes, like their expectations on how a website works changes over those years.
Search engine optimization has changed dramatically.
That has changed all of these things. So, we've hired a new graphic designer to come in and just clean somebody with UX experience to go through and clean up our site, clean up our newsletters, clean up our templates. We have 500,000 people in our database that we haven't contacted in a couple of years. So now we've got a big project.
There's a gold mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're just back to mining. It was that, like, if you want to use that, like the gold was just flowing freely and we didn't have to work for it a ton. And the team has kind of gone into it thinking it was just operating the same way that we've been operating the last few years. And those methods just don't work anymore. Some of them do. I mean, I'm not saying that everything that we're doing, but we need to reimagine. So I'm building a couple new teams, investing in new people, pivoting in a couple of different areas, bringing on, a new product line, and just shaking things up.
Laura, you're kind of addressing the big picture there. You did tell us before that you set these sales goals for the year with your sales team. They agreed to them.
100%. You're
not hitting them.
Right.
What are you saying to your sales team? How are you managing that?
So I don't actually manage so we're just talking about on the e-commerce side. On the e-commerce side, our general manager, she's responsible for sales and she manages that team. And quite frankly, like the team has just collapsed under the pressure.
What does that mean, collapsed?
Crying all the time, arguing.
Wow.
There's nothing wrong with crying. Crying means you care.
Being resistant in meetings to like not being collaborative. It's gotten messy. It's just messy. So good people who have done good work in the past are just they're just collapsing. I mean, crying a lot, breaking down.
Are you sure that you have, given that you're in 2 locations out of state, which I don't envy, it's hard enough to do it when they're all in the same building with you. Are you sure that you figured out what the core reason for this quote unquote collapses? Are you sure that you got a good read on that?
Well, these are humans. So are you ever really sure?
Well, if you have, I guess I'd be more specific. Have you had sit downs one-on-one with them, maybe in the car, even going to lunch, to see what's really on their mind, to find out what's really, when someone's crying, that means they've hit that's like the switch breaker. Something's really just gone overboard.
It is.
And
exactly.
Something's pushing it. Did you figure out why they're crying?
Yes. The answer is yes. And we have figured out, and that's why I'm working so hard right now, is because I'm working to fix those problems. We're working to take workload off. I'm working to reset the goals, to reset the budgets, to, take pressure off. And move some of our sales expectations into other areas. And even from the interpersonal side of things, that I got 2 teams who are warring with each other. So how do we handle that? So yes, we're on it.
What are they fighting over?
Who Laura loves more?
Probably. There might be some of that. They're, just silly stuff.
If you're not there, which we're not, it's very difficult from the outside to really know. There's 6 different reasons why maybe is it because they feel like they're being treated unfairly?
Totally.
They feel like someone's not working as hard as them? Is because you don't understand? Is it just pressure that they know the numbers? Or is it post-pandemic? There's way more anxiety out there. There's just way more anxiety.
Exactly. There's a ton more anxiety, and it's manifesting in many different ways. And we've had a lot of different events happen over the last year that have either, like with personnel as a result, probably of the pandemic, people who have left. So we've had some turnover of high-level people over this last 12 months.
How are your sales doing, Paul?
Yeah, they're okay. They're on track to be our second best year ever. And last year was the outlier. And that was what I was talking about with luck. We just happened to have one client who decided to clear their whole backlog of projects that have been sitting around for years. This is a big defense contractor, and I think they were rubbing their hands together after the Ukraine war and realizing that they were about to be as busy as they wanted to be for the foreseeable future. So they just did all these capital projects, and that blew our numbers way past where they thought they would be. And now we're kind of back to reality. So, yeah, we're okay.
We've been tracking your new marketing campaign here, building a new website, going after a different kind of customer, architects who might be repeat customers as opposed to the one-time purchasers that you've relied on. Has that had any effect on the way you look at sales? Are you going to have to hire more people, a different approach for a different kind of customer?
Yeah, sort of. First of all, news on that. We sort of completed the creative phase of the project, and then I was presented with a proposal for the distribution phase of this new content, and my marketing agent was pushing a digital strategy where we do what they call programmatic advertising, which is basically the kind of ads that chase you around on your phone and wherever you are, which I find very irritating, but marketers always swear to God that's the best way to do things. And my feeling was that for the target audience we're going after, which is a small number of people who are probably not going to be really receptive to those kinds of ads, that we want a face-to-face strategy. So I just pulled the plug on the entire digital half of this thing, and we're going all in on a show where we get to meet certain people face-to-face. And then my feeling is afterwards, the follow-up is the critical part, that we start doing regular outreach and sending people physical objects. In other words, doing the thing you can't do digitally, which is to put something in somebody's hands. And it's sort of that reciprocal gift-giving idea, but also I think that our target market is going to respond a lot more to actually having a really interesting piece of wood in their hand as opposed to just a picture of it on their phone. And we've never really been very good at sustaining any kind of outreach before. So I was just having a discussion with one member of my sales team about, okay, I think I'm going to put this on your plate, and it's going to be your job to try to maintain connections with these target clients. And if you can successfully do that, then I'm going to give you a much bigger commission on those jobs, because those are going to be big jobs. And then simultaneously, we're also experiencing that kind of watching an employee slowly fall apart. One of my sales guys is, I think, entering some kind of doom loop, or at least in a bad patch, where pressures on his personal life are leaking into what he does all day, and that's causing him to not be as effective a salesperson. And then as he doesn't make sales, then that increases the pressure on his personal life because he's not, blah, 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 blah. So that's what's going on.
I want to throw in to all of us that are bosses, that's a thin line between supportive and doing the right thing. And where does it get to where it's hurting the business to a point?
I am right there.
I know.
Because I just ran the numbers on this. This guy, we have two salespeople, and we basically distribute the jobs as, for the most part, it's just like car salesmen. One comes in, goes to this guy, the next one goes to the next guy. So after I just ran the numbers, and since the beginning of 2021 to 2023, one guy's gotten 366 leads, the other guy's gotten 370 leads, and the guy who got 366 sold 3.7 million, and the guy who got 370 sold 6.5 million.
Wow.
So that's 2.7 million difference. Now, I know that in any sales team, there's always going to be the best one is going to be usually not real close to the second and third, that there's an uneven distribution, but this is starting to become serious money, and I'm like, I'm not sure we can tolerate this much longer.
How long's he been with you?
10 years.
Yeah, no, been there, done that.
And now here's a guy who's in his early 50s, and he's not, I don't know where he's going to go if I let him go, but.
Well, here's my question, which has been very helpful to me. We sat around years ago, and I said to everybody, for those that remember Jack Welch from GE, he was always like the driven, take no hostages, fire the bottom 10%. And there's been a book written about him, how he helped destroy corporate America because all of his lieutenants went out and screwed up the companies they went out to. So let's just say that Jack Welch, may he rest in peace, is a 10 and Mr. Rogers is a 1. So the question is, where do we want to be as a company? And my argument is, if you pick 4 or 5, you're probably going to go out of business. So we all decided we think we should be an 8. And when stuff like this happens, when we cut people some slack, and the reality is I'm probably a 7, 7.5, whatever. But it was very helpful because at some point when you cut someone some slack, somebody once said to me, well, Jay, we're doing that because we're an 8, we're not a 10, which is true. So the question is, if you buy into that concept to be a healthy, profitable company, but not necessarily the most profitable, and you don't want to be just that driven that you're going to have no compassion for human beings. I don't want to be a 10. That's the point. So if we all agree we want to be somewhere between a 7 and 8, the question is, where does the 7 or 8 go to when a guy's starting to cost over $1 million worth of sales?
Yeah, I mean, in my heart, I'm probably like a 4. And I have to really slap myself in the face to get up to about a 6. And
Jay can slap you.
But that is the toughest conversation because there's two things. You have the conversation and either he straightens up and starts going the other direction, or you totally destroy him. And in my mind, the easy way out is just wait and see what happens.
Which is okay in a lot of cases. I certainly have done that. I'm not arguing with that if it takes care of itself to some degree.
It does, but in every day it's costing me money too. And it's costing the company money. Like if this guy was performing even as well as he did 3 years ago, we would be well past my goals for this year. And I mean, just today, he kind of poo-pooed a job that it's not 100% lock that it would be a sale, but it's about a 65%. And he just is having such a bad attitude towards things. So I don't know. I'm probably going to have to do something soon. But the other piece of this is that if I have a talk with him and he storms out and quits, then I got to do his job because there's nobody else who can do it. And I'm not dying to do that, although I could do it. And so I think the real solution is I need to start hiring for this position and just bite the bullet and maybe have one discussion with him and say, I'm about to do this.
I would tell you the word that I've used, which is this is not sustainable. I mean, that is the appropriate, this isn't sustainable. And when you say you destroy him, I would argue you're not destroying him. He's destroying self.
No. My old partner used to always say that, like, you don't do anything to employees. They do it to themselves. And that's, yeah, like I'm not a malevolent boss running an exploitive organization. So that is actually true in my case, that the employees go off the rails for their own reasons.
And our job is to help them if we can. But at some point, there's only so much we can do, and we owe it to the company to take care of business.
That's right. You're threatening the team, and then you got to go.
In the past, Paul, I think you have tended to hire salespeople off your production floor, take woodworkers and make them salespeople.
Well, I have an N of 1 on that. So once I took 2 guys and with one, it worked great. And the other one, it worked pretty well for a while. And now he's starting to burn out. So I can't say that that's necessarily a great repeatable process. So
what's your plan if you have to hire salespeople now?
I think I'm going to try just advertising for it right now. Listen, the person we need to hire is actually a young architect who knows how to design and is interested in talking to people. And the problem is that we're kind of a backwater in terms of career progression. Like if you went to an architecture school and you're working in firms and all of a sudden you went and started working for me, it would be difficult to get back into, or maybe it wouldn't, but I think it would be difficult to get back into the regular career track. And so, I mean, maybe I'm probably just making up head trash now that I think about it, but
like in most things, half the people to go into that end up not actually being architects is my guess. That's what it is in most professions, except for being a doctor maybe, or maybe even a lawyer. I think plenty of people that go into architecture probably end up not being architects. There just aren't enough architect jobs around, I would think.
Yeah, being an architect is often not all that sexy either when you start. But the tricky thing is the way we have our sales process organized now, the people who are actually doing the selling need to be both technically adept, be able to manipulate software at a high level, and be able to just sell. In other words, get on a phone with someone, talk them into it, reassure them. And the number of people who are in the center of that Venn diagram is pretty small because you can get part of it, but not all of it. So I may have to consider breaking out these roles and having somebody who can just draw and design and someone who can talk and sell. And
that's where it gets interesting, though. No one goes to college and says, I think when I graduate, I want to go into selling really high-end, beautiful conference tables. No one goes, oh, I think I'm going to go to school and come out and, run a picture framing factory. I mean, many of us get employees that there's no degree for that. And you find people who have some of the skill sets from the degree, but end up saying, oh, you know what? I'm really good at sales, because they don't tell you in college there's no grade for salesmanship. So there's most of the things that make people successful in the world, or many of them, they don't test in school. Creativity, drive, tenacity, sales ability. So there are those people, I call them diamonds in the rough. I think you can find someone who you'll find that diamond in the rough that'll do a good job, but you certainly will have to put some time into it.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you do when you start to look and your existing salesman finds out that you're looking? Isn't he going to know?
I don't know.
Good question.
Nothing good, I presume.
You tell him an honest conversation, this isn't sustainable. I'm going to have to be looking for someone.
I've already had that conversation with him in my head like 5,000 or 6,000 times.
Is he commission based 100%?
He's about, now keeping in mind when I say these numbers about what the proportion of base to commission is, that these guys were literally woodworkers and had real suspicion about being sales guys. So he's getting paid a base of 60,000 plus 4% commission on whatever he sells. So two salesmen, the lead salesman sold $3.5 million last year. So he ended up making about $175,000. And then,
which isn't bad as a percentage of what he sold.
No, and he's working 40 hours a week, and he doesn't have to wear shoes. It's just like all kinds of easy things about doing this. The other guy sold a lot less than that and made about $100,000.
But look at what your cost on sales on that. Instead of costing you 6%,
I know what my cost on sales is.
It's a lot higher, obviously.
None of this is attractive as a business owner, so it's a problem. And I've been very wimpy about dealing with it, because I do fear that I'm going to have a conversation that's going to end up with somebody devastated, and I just hate doing that. It is just like, I've done it a few times in my career where you have a conversation with someone and you just drove a stake through their heart, and it's not like it didn't need to be said, but it's just such an ugly thing to watch. So it's really hard for me to pull myself to it. And I haven't quite gotten to the moment where it's absolutely unavoidable yet, and that's probably what it's going to take.
Well, as always, I have a movie that'll help you with this. Saving Private Ryan, where he was a soldier. Tom Hanks was a soldier, and then everyone convinced him he needed to be more of a human being, and he started talking about his family and stuff, and then he let the sniper go, and the sniper killed him at the end. So, we are soldiers, and that's the way it is. And sometimes you got to do stuff that you just have to take care of business. And it makes, trust me, it's not like it's easy. I'm not suggesting it's easy.
I've been through it. I've done it. And the thing that's most daunting about this is, in other cases when I had to get rid of somebody like that, I didn't have to immediately jump in and do their job afterwards. And so that's daunting, because I've done a lot of selling, talk about PTSD, just put me in front of a client, I'm great, but inside I'm screaming. I'm like that picture, the scream. That's what's going on, because I've just done so much selling. I don't know what capacity I have for it.
Do you not do it at all anymore now, Paul?
I try not to. I jump into certain situations, but it's my choice.
And your other sales guy doesn't have the bandwidth to take on 50% more?
No. I'm not about to. No, I'm not going to do that to him, because.
Well, could you ask him though? What if he wanted to? What if he wanted to make $250 a year?
I could ask him if he wanted to. I don't think he does want to, but I could ask him. That's a good question. I haven't asked him, hey, do you want to do 2 jobs?
I don't think you're necessarily making a mistake. You don't want to do that job, but he's there. It's costing you a little more than you want.
Neither of those things are actually a solution either, because the long-term solution is figure out how to hire for this position and start doing it. And I've ridden an unsatisfactory configuration for a long time and sort of survived it, but that's not what needs to happen next.
You mentioned from a business standpoint that paying them combined $275,000 isn't necessarily the best financial approach for the business. So could you use this as an opportunity to create a new model? Maybe your existing sales, maybe this is a great opportunity to take $100,000 out of your costs? And what if you could figure out how to make that only cost you $50,000 more? So maybe your main sales guy gets an assistant.
That's not a bad question, and that's certainly a possibility. But then that means that I'm even more vulnerable if something happens to the other guy. And I don't feel like that's a good move.
But how many wives do you have? I mean, you only have one wife, right? Like, aren't you pretty vulnerable to if something happens to her?
Boy, you're making some assumptions.
Wow.
Oh. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, yes, that's...
No, I have one wife. I'm not sure how that's relevant because I don't need to scale my family at this point. And what I'm thinking is I've let this situation develop for a long time because it worked reasonably well. The cost of those guys is not unsustainable. A lot of whether we make money or not has to do with what happens downstream of them. And so I think that this is one that I've pretty much built in redundancy for every other operational position we have by making sure people are cross-trained and hired, and I just haven't done it here. And I just need to do it. I just need to get my...
Yeah, but you're the redundancy.
Yeah, but I don't want to be the redundancy.
You know what? I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I think you're not a 10, you're a 7 or 8, and you're giving him some time to see if he can get back to where he needs to be. I think you're playing it out. It's extremely difficult. I certainly have been there, and I certainly have spent more than a year or two with letting it go. And do I, in hindsight, regret it? Not really, because when someone's been there a long time, I think
Can you sleep at night is the question.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be able to sleep.
Yeah, I've had long-time employees who sort of started drifting over the line and came back. And so what I haven't done, which is what needs to happen next, is warn him that he's very close to the line. Like, specifically say it to him, like, what you did this morning, that's not okay. And that's a symptom of a bigger problem. I've
had conversations with people who, you know, especially if their personal life is infringing on or affecting their work. I've had some successful conversations with people that say, do you need to scale back? Like, do we need to kind of reassess your position? Because, you know, until things calm down for you, because maybe this is just too much stress for him as well. I mean, could you come up with, I don't know, just different expectations? Or, I mean, if you're not happy, he's not happy either.
I had that conversation with him a couple months ago, and I sit down with every single one of my employees at least 3 times a year to uncover these situations. And he said, yeah, you know, like my mom is a problem, and he's got a difficult daughter, and, you know, like there's stuff just like everybody. And I'm extremely sympathetic to this because I have a difficult situation that causes me to jump out every now and then. So it's like I can't necessarily tell people that they can't deal with their personal life when I deal with my personal life all the time.
Of course.
But yeah, it's tough. We already are supporting him, that I'm jumping in more often and taking some jobs that he doesn't want to do that I think have potential. And yeah, the rest of the team is aware, but I think that it's starting to become, as I said, it's getting close to where it just has to be dealt with.
When I was about 30, I was in a business group, and all the other people were older than me. And I went there one day. I had a key guy from the beginning who was starting to fall apart. So I tell everyone at the table about it, and I'm expecting them to go, grow up, be the boss, you got to get rid of him. And every last one of them sat around the table shrugging, going, yeah, I got one of those. So you're not alone. We're all dealing with, if not today, this is what being in business is. I don't know how you could be in business and not have this.
No,
Jeez, I feel
do you want to have a cigarette? Do you want to have a cigarette?
I feel different.
I think I want a drink is what I want.
I feel your pain, and I think you're handling things responsibly for both the business and the person.
It is what it is.
And you'll figure it out. And whatever you do will be the right thing, meaning it won't be unfair because at some point you have to take care of the business.
My thanks to Paul Downs, Jay Goltz, and Laura Zander, and to our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses use an open book management system to build healthier companies. You can learn more at greatgame.com. And really, thanks, guys. I appreciate the way you share here. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN @21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.